Welcome to But Enough About Me, a podcast about other people. My name is Tyler Andrews. I'm a Nashville-based photographer, husband, and father. I'm trying to collect the stories of everyone around me, whether we're best friends or total strangers. I want to know what made you the person you are today. Welcome back to the show, guys. It is the end of the year. I am recording this on December 30th. It'll be released on December 31st, literally the last day of 2019. I can't think of a better way to close out the year. And it's been rough trying to get this done in the midst of all the work and family and everything else. But I couldn't let this opportunity pass to close out the year in the best way I could think, which is putting something in the world that didn't exist previously, creating something and sharing somebody else's story. I love this. I love this. So today's story is a great one. It's honestly, this is going to sound crazy, especially once you hear the story, but I wasn't sure I was going to share this story. And you'll hear why. Today's guest is a pastor from Uganda, and his accent is strong. It's a strong accent, and you really have to pay attention to follow what it is he's saying. So if you're trying to multitask and listen to this episode, it ain't going to work. You're going to need to pay attention and listen, and I hope you will, because it's a really good story, and he's worth listening to. So he's a pastor, he is a father and a husband, he has 4 kids. He tells you all about them right off the jump, so you'll get to know them quickly. And it's just a really interesting, unique, and different story. He was here in America specifically raising money to buy bicycles for other pastors, so that they can get to the churches that they shepherd all over Africa. He's helped start a bunch of them. He does leadership training and pastoral discipleship and things like that. And so one of the big problems is that these pastors are having to walk 10, 15 miles just to get to work. And so he wants to buy them bicycles so that they can get there easier. So that's why he was here in America. I'll tell you details about how you can help out with that later. Right now, guys, buckle up. This is a crazy story. My new friend, Pastor Henry Mugarula Solomon. It's just that simple.
Yeah, that's okay.
Pastor, thank you.
Welcome.
I want to know your story.
Yes.
When were you born?
Thank you, Tyra.
Yeah.
I'm born of Uganda, East Africa. And my name's, I'm called Henry Mugarula Solomon. I'm married.
Yeah.
Married to Irene Mokite Mugarula. And God has blessed us with four children.
That's fantastic.
My firstborn is 10 years. He's called Solomon. My secondborn is 5 years and a half. He's called Joel. My thirdborn is 3 years and 3 months. He's called Abel. My lastborn, she's 1 year. She's called Happiness. And she's my mother.
Yeah.
And I told everyone in my house to call her my mother.
Why is that?
Simply because I never had parents, And I think that's the story I'm going to share with you. That's part of my story.
Yeah. Do you know your birthday?
Right, I know. Surprisingly, my birthday is next week, Tuesday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Always my birthday is on 27th August.
What year?
God has blessed me. I will be turning 42 years.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So 42, that puts it back to 77?
That's right.
Aha.
That's right.
Very cool.
Yes.
So tell me about early life in Uganda. You said Uganda?
You're right.
Okay.
You're right. Yeah. I was born in 1977. My father was called Frederick Musigi,
Okay.
and my mother, she was called Florence. They got married, and my mother, she gave birth of 4 girls.
Wow.
And according to our culture, almost African culture resemble each other. The culture of Africa would desire a man to produce a male child. The parents of my father, they requested him to get married another woman because my mother, she wasn't giving birth to the boy. She was giving birth to only girls. And then my father, he was very well educated, and they were somehow very rich. My mother had a maid in her house. So when the parents of my father pressurized him to get another woman so that she can produce a boy, my father fell in love with a maid
Wow.
who was in the house. My mother could not afford to be in the same house with another woman who was a maid to her. So my mother had to left that home to go away.
Did your sisters go with her?
No,
Oh my.
she left them with their father, and then she went away. And when she went away, she stayed with her parents for 2 years. The parents of my mother were Christians. They were believing in God.
Mm-hmm.
They went to a priest and prayed for my mother. And then a priest told my mother, go back to your marriage. God will bless you with a boy. Then she went back and she found the maid who was the wife now. She had already given birth to the baby boy.
Wow.
And then she tried her level best to be in the house, but she was unable.
Yeah.
And then she had to go back again to her parents.
So your mom tried to live in the house with the maid who is now married to her husband,
That's right.
who had, I assume, they never got divorced.
They didn't. They had just separated.
So he just had 2 wives.
Yeah.
Well, that's a thing.
And then my mother, she was unable to be in the same house. Later on, she had to go back.
Yeah.
But by the time she went back, she discovered that she was pregnant of me.
Wow.
Then she went back to her parents, and she gave birth of me while she was with her parents.
That's cool.
The man who was called to be my father,
Yeah.
he never visited me when I was young, and I never saw him during his lifetime. My mother, she was still young. She had to go and look for life. Then she left me with her parents.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with her parents, with my grandmother. Life was very, very hard. Life was extremely hard. My grandmother, she was very old, and later on, she became blind. She could not see. And finally, she died.
How old were you?
She died when I was around 12 years. But before she died, she took me to school. I don't know how you call it right here in US, but I when I was 7 years. She took me to primary 1, primary 2,
Okay.
and my education ended up there.
After primary 2.
Yes, when I was 9 years.
Wow.
My education ended up there.
So had you learned to read and write at that point?
Not really.
Not really.
Not really. I had captured some small words, some
Yeah.
stanzas, but not really. And then, when my grandmother died, I had no option.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up joining the bad groups because I had nowhere to stay. Nobody cares about me. I have no father.
Was your grandfather part of the family as well, or was he gone?
He had died.
Oh, okay.
I had nobody.
Yeah.
So life became so hard, and I ended up joining the bad groups, as I told you.
Yeah.
And then we started doing some small jobs in the community in order to survive,
Like what?
helping the merchants, the builders. They taught me how to drink. At the age of 13, I started
Wow.
drinking. I started smoking. I started all the bad habits that you can
Yeah.
think of.
Yeah.
And then I ended up on the streets of Kampala. Kampala is the capital city of Uganda.
Yeah.
Well, I was on the street, sleeping without covering yourself, sleeping on the road, going without eating for days, taking some drugs in order to survive, to keep yourself out of stress. Life was like that.
How did you survive? How would you eat?
You know, sometimes when people eat their food, they have leftovers, they put them on the garbage. Here in America, you call them trash.
Mm-hmm.
You put the leftovers in the trash, and then that's where we go and search to some bread, some stuff that are remain, and then we eat and we survive. Sometimes they are rotten, but you have no option. You have to eat in order to survive.
Yeah.
Life was like that, and then God had me in a plan. When I was turning 17 years, back in 1994.
Okay.
But before that, I had a father. They told me I had a father. I have a father, is there.
Yeah.
You can imagine I was 17, had not seen him.
Yeah.
He never thought of me. He never thought of coming and checking on me. I don't know whether he was black, or he was brown, or he was tall, or he was short. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And I became too bitter about him.
I don't think that's surprising. I can't imagine how that would feel.
I became bitter.
Yeah.
And that bitterness continued up to 2015. That's when I was healed out of it. So,
When you were a child and when you're living on the streets,
yes.
did you ever attempt to find your father?
No, because it was very far. It was like 300 miles
Oh my gosh.
away from where I was to where he is. So there is no way how I could find him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like that. And then in 1994, a certain lady found me on the streets of Kampala, dying. And she was born again. She was a Christian. She believed in God. And she told me, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Yes." Then she started telling me the story about Jesus. Jesus loves you. He cares for you. And so on. Then she told me, "I have a pastor. My pastor can pray for you and help you. Is it okay with you?" I said, "That's fine." She said, "Okay, let's go to my pastor." Then she took me to her pastor
Mm-hmm.
at the church. Then the pastor preached to me the gospel, and he asked me, "Do you want to give your life to Jesus Christ?" I said, "Yes."
Mm.
He led me in the prayer of salvation. Later on, he prayed for me. That was Tuesday. Then he told me, "On Friday and Sunday we have a fellowship. Please come back for fellowship." I went. On a Friday I came back for fellowship. After the fellowship, he asked me, "Where do you stay?" I told him I stay at the street. He said, "Oh, who is your father?" I told him my story. He said, "Oh, okay. Can you come and stay in the church?" I saw an opportunity. I said, "Yes." Then, from that time, I started staying in the church. And for the first time, this man, the pastor, he was staying nearby the church. In deep poverty, but he loved the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Very early in the morning on Saturday, he called me, "Henry, come and we have breakfast." That was too big. That was too big for me.
Mm.
Then I went. We sat together. We took tea together. And that love
Yeah.
touched my life.
Let me go back for just a moment.
Yes.
I've never lived on the street.
Yes.
I don't know what that's like.
You are lucky.
That is a fact. Did you have a place that you stayed regularly? Or did you just wander and wherever you got tired, that's where you slept? How did that work?
Well, you walk on the street, but for your security, maybe during the daytime you can go around, but in the night you come back in the city center
Okay.
because you sleep under the shade of the buildings. When it rains,
Yeah.
it will not pour on you because you'll be under the shade of the building.
Yeah.
But outside,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the second thing, there is light around
Yeah.
because the building has got lights everywhere. But again, it was risky because the police could come in the night to catch you and take you to the prison.
Mm.
So it was also too risky. But that's how we used to stay.
Did you get taken to prison?
No, I didn't.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
life was like that. I think when people look at the people on the street, others, they can speak whatever they want. When you see somebody on the street struggling, you can say they don't want to work, they're on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But some other people, they have a lot of stuff to tell. So before you judge them, sometimes you need to sit down and listen to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So at 17,
Yes.
you were taken in by a church, by a pastor,
Yes.
and he fed you.
That's right.
Was he married?
Yes.
And did he have kids?
That's right. 3 of them.
So what happened at that point? Were you, effectively adopted?
Not really. But he gave me a chance to stay in the church.
Yeah.
But I wasn't adopted by him. But he was a kind pastor.
Mm-hmm.
He was a loving man. He loved me. Then during lunchtime, he could call me, come, let's eat together. And that I had never seen such a love, and I had never seen anybody caring about me like that pastor. I have a mission myself. My mission, I minister love to the brokenhearted. I think that's what God called me to do. Ministering love to the brokenhearted. It's because of what I went through, and then God gave me that mission. Yeah.
What happened to you from then, from the time you were taken in at the church? Did you've been educated since then at some point in time? What happened?
When the church took me in, my pastor started teaching me the Bible. And we used to call it a Bible study.
Mm-hmm.
And from that very time, we started reading the Bible in my language, not English, because I didn't know how to read
Sure.
English.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to write. Then that Bible study continued almost for 3 years. But in the period of 3 years, my life had changed completely. From being a street kid to be somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
The way I was looking, because on the street you don't bathe, you can spend 2 months, 3 months without bathing. You don't shave. You are on drugs.
Mm.
You are very dirty and stinking every day.
Yeah.
Nobody could wish to sit down with you on the meal.
Right.
And now, for the 3 years in the church, I was shaving. I was bathing every day. I was eating breakfast and lunch and supper.
Mm.
I was brushing the teeth. You could now have a picture
Yeah.
of who I was after joining the church for 3 years. I was completely a different person.
Were you able to find work?
I worked in the church, helping to prepare the church, cleaning the church, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the work I was doing. I didn't know that in doing that, God was calling me into the ministry. I want to tell everyone that is listening to me, you may be a Christian, you may be a Muslim, you may be a Hindu, you may be or somebody who doesn't believe in God. I want to tell you, God has a purpose for your life.
Tell me about...
Can I say it again?
Yeah, you can say it as much as you want.
You may be, maybe you know people on the street struggling. Don't judge them. Walk to them. Listen to them. When you see a homeless person, sometimes it's not his choice. It's just happened. He found himself on a street. So if you can help them, please move out with compassion and help them. Because nobody wishes to live such a life. It just happens.
Tell me about Uganda and specifically about Kampala, because they're pretty different from America.
Wow. Uganda is a beautiful country. Very beautiful. It is just near to the equator.
Mm-hmm. So hot.
It's not hot.
No?
Not hot. It rains and it's just in the middle there.
Okay.
And the difference in America, you eat from the stores.
Yeah.
In Uganda, we call them supermarkets. In America, we call them stores, right?
The supermarket works.
Right. But in Uganda, it's different. People get their food from their gardens.
You got to grow it.
Yeah. So, Uganda, we grow up potatoes, cassava, plantains, which is green bananas.
Mm-hmm.
We have millet.
Okay.
We have sorghum.
Uh-huh.
We have corn, which is maize flour in Uganda. Here you call it corn.
Sure.
And then we have vegetables. We have beans, red beans.
Yep.
We have peas. And we have beef. Because Uganda is blessed, is a country with a biggest lake in the world. Do you know that lake?
Is it Lake Victoria?
That's right.
Yeah.
So we have some fish. That's how we survive in Uganda. But yet, we have all that, but in deep poverty. And I'm wondering if God never allowed us to have like a big lake growing our food from the gardens, wouldn't be able to survive because poverty
Yeah.
is on the high peak. It's very hard, like taking children to school. It's very hard. Hospitals, people, they die of malaria.
Yeah.
You can imagine malaria, but we don't have medicine to treat the malaria.
Yeah.
That's how much poverty is rampant in Uganda. Yeah.
Other than farming,
Yes.
what do most people, are there any big industries in Uganda?
What you have to know, Tyler, we got our independence in 1962,
From?
the British colony, whereby Uganda is 55 years old. It's very young. It's a young country,
Yeah.
which is growing up.
Yeah.
So in terms of industries, and another story which I can tell you,
Please.
it's amazing, ever since we got our independence in 1962, we had 10 presidents in that shortest period
Okay.
of time.
Yeah. Democratically elected? Like people vote for them?
No, simply because ever since we got our independence, there was wars after wars.
Oh.
Government changes by coup. So it has been like that ever since. And the people died like in 1981 to 1985. People died maybe around 800,000.
800,000?
Yes.
Wow. Because of a government coup.
Yes. And then when we went through that, AIDS came in.
Mm.
And when AIDS came in, it killed almost 1 million people. We had no drugs. So that is Uganda. You find people here in America, at least every family has got a car. But in Uganda, it's like 2% that has got a car.
I guess that would mean then that the roads
are not good.
They're not great.
They are not.
Yeah.
Our infrastructure are very, very bad. But I'm not saying this that I would wish to come and stay in America. No. I was born a Ugandan, and I'll be a Ugandan. I have visited America. It is my first time to be here.
Welcome.
It's a lovely country, lovely people, great nation. Everything is beautiful. But at the end of the day, I have to go back to my poorest country and try to give hope to the people which are starving. Yeah. Yes.
So by the time you were 20,
20
you were
in the church.
eating and shaving and in the Bible study.
That's right.
Yeah. What happened after that? You said
I know you may not believe this, and even the people, I'm not telling that all the people that are listening to me to believe what I'm going to tell you, because some of you don't know. But because it's part of my story, I have to share it with you.
Please.
And during that time, I felt the Lord was calling me
Yes.
to serve Him. And I was committed to serve Him. Then my pastor, when he saw my commitment to the Lord, and he was 100% convinced that God has called me, he taught me ministry. And then appointed me to be a youth leader, eventually which turned to be a youth pastor. Then I continued to grow in the things of God. And then I became a pastor.
So for you, I mean, in Uganda and by your experience,
Yes.
becoming a pastor wasn't a matter of going to a seminary or a school and having a certain number of years of education. It was mentorship and oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the word.
Training.
Yeah, thank you. That works. Training.
Right.
From someone who was already established.
Good.
In the faith, in leadership.
Good. I know I'm talking this to, I know in the studio where I am, I'm talking to big audience with different people groups, different beliefs, and different faith. But it will not stop me to tell you what I'm supposed to tell you. In terms of ministry, it is the calling first, then the training later. That's where the difference between the Pentecostal movement or the born-again faith with the other faith like Anglican, like Methodist, like Catholic. For them, you first go to the seminary. And after going to the seminary, then you come, and then God calls. I don't know whether God calls them. I'm not so sure. Because for them, it's like a job. It's like a job.
Yeah.
Like you work in the bank, you go and acquire skills of being an accountant, and then you come and work in a bank. But for the pastorship, it's different, according to the biblical principles. It is first the calling, then the training comes later. So my pastor, when he realized that God has called me, he put me in ministry as he was mentoring me,
Mm-hmm.
training me to be what God called me to be.
Mm.
And that happened, that it was between around 1997, 1998. And then he sent me to the missionary training. And I went there.
Where was that?
It was in Kampala.
Okay.
But the big challenge was that I didn't know how to write well.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to speak English.
Mm.
So it was so challenging to me.
Yeah, I would imagine.
But I stayed there. And then the lecturers could come and give the lecturers the teachings and all that.
Yeah.
And then later on, they asked people the student to contribute, but I couldn't because I didn't know how to speak. I didn't know how to write very well. So I was just a silent student in the lecture room. And I prayed to God, I think the Muslim people can agree with me because Muslim, they pray in the morning, in the evening, afternoon, praying always. So they trust God that
Right.
can do anything.
Yeah.
So that's what I could do at that particular time. And then after the course, because of my commit, I could, after the lecture time, all the students could go away out of the lecture room, and I remained there in the room, praying and crying upon the Lord, crying tears.
Mm.
But I want to remind you, all that happened when I was too bitter about my father.
Mm.
And there's something I had forgotten to tell you. My dad died in 1996.
Wow.
1996, I was 19 years.
How did you find out about that?
Somebody told me. And then they took me for his burial.
Oh, wow.
But I found when they already buried him. And
Did you make, you made the trip?
yeah, I made it. I went.
Wow.
I met all those sisters that my mother gave birth at first.
Yep.
Even the children of the maid.
Yeah.
But because Uganda, we have got many languages. It's not one. It's not a one tribe. We have 52 tribes, so we have 52 different languages.
Man, oh man.
Yeah. So the language they were speaking, I could not understand, and the language I was speaking, they couldn't understand.
Wow.
After 2 days, I had to come back to Kampala. And I remained bitter of those people. So back to my course at the missionary,
Yeah.
who graduated successfully. I passed.
On time, or did it take you longer?
No, on time. Because I explained my challenge to the lectures. I don't understand English very well. I don't write very well, so they could understand me and give me a chance to explain things in the language that I understand.
Right.
By God's grace, I went out of the seminary, the missionary training, and then the ministry started.
Yeah. How long was seminary? How long was that ministry training?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you left to begin ministry, where did you go?
When I left the seminary, I went back to my church.
Okay.
And then I told my pastor, I feel God is calling me to plant a church. He laid his hand on me and released me,
Mm.
and I went and started a church,
Where'd you go? Did you stay in Kampala?
the same city.
Okay.
And I started a church called Revival Worship Center,
Okay.
where I'm currently a lead pastor. And of course, it was too much challenging, but I stood. In America, it's completely different because a pastor is sent by a certain denomination
Mm-hmm.
to a pastor is paid.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely different from African setup. You have to find your way out,
Mm.
how to survive.
So do you work other jobs or?
At that moment, I didn't have any other job apart from pastoring the people. So I went to the community, I preached the gospel, I prayed for the people.
Mm-hmm.
Sick people could get instant miracles, instant healings.
Really?
People which are dying of malaria, people which are dying of tuberculosis and all other diseases. After praying for them, they could get healed instantly. And because of that, people could say, please, can you come back next week? Yes.
Yeah.
Can you come back the other week? Yes. And then people could gather in one family. We praise, we worship. I preach the word and I pray for them. So that thing happened maybe like 3 months, and then it became a fellowship.
It just kind of naturally formed out of what was happening.
It was formed out of the community people.
Yeah.
And then after that, they said, man, we are here, we are blessed, but we don't gather on Sunday. We go to different churches on Sunday. Why don't we start our Sunday service? That's how we started our church.
Makes sense. That started, you said, in 97, 98?
No. That one started 1999, the end of 1999.
Okay. So you said you're married.
Yes.
How did you meet your wife?
That is somehow, it happened many years after that because I got married. Was it 2014? 2004?
Yep. 2004.
2004.
Uh-huh.
My wife, we had hosted a worship evening, and my wife came to the church. At that time, she wasn't my wife.
Right.
She was a girl. And then she went back. She came at a second time, and then she joined our church.
Was she already a believer?
Yes,
Okay.
she was a believer. And then she joined our church. Good enough, she was a worshiper. Then when she joined the worship team. She had some even gospel songs which she had composed. She had
wow.
albums. And then after a period of 5-6 months, I felt the Lord leading me to ask her hand in marriage. But before that happened, I felt it was the right time for me to get married. Then I got my church elders. I invited them. It was Wednesday night. One of the Wednesday night, I invited them to come and spend the night with me in prayer. But I didn't tell them what we are going to pray about.
Okay.
When they came, of course, I had to put a prayer request before them, and then we start praying. In the night, there were almost 15 elders.
Wow.
I told them, I feel it's my right time to get married. But I don't know whom to get married to. The reason why I called you, I trust you as my elders, that if you stand with me in prayer, then God will show me the right person to marry. Then there was a very big argument in those elders. Others, they said, we want you to marry a very intelligent woman, lady who can respect us, a woman of,
Yeah.
caliber, beautiful, what, and so on. Then they were divided. That
Okay.
argument took almost like 3 hours.
That's not praying.
Yeah. And then my church administrator, she was older lady
Okay.
of like 50 years,
Mm-hmm.
and she was a senior police officer.
Oh, wow.
She said, very quiet lady and intelligent. She said, anyway, let us allow our pastor to marry any person the Lord will show him. When she made that statement, the argument stopped, and then we launched into prayer. We started praying. We prayed and prayed up to morning. At that particular time, I didn't know who to marry. In fact, they asked me, have you seen any girl? I told them no. Have you not even connected to anybody? I told them no.
So you didn't have anybody in mind?
I didn't.
You just knew this was a thing you needed.
But
God had led you to that.
I knew that it's my right time to get married, but I didn't have anybody in my mind.
Okay.
All of them, they were surprised because they were girls in our church, very beautiful,
Sure.
educated. And at that time, I had did mission to South Africa, to Kenya, and everywhere. And they were asking me, not anybody. I told them no. And then we prayed. And I told them, if God will show me the right person to marry, I'll bring and introduce that person to my church administrator. And then after that, maybe in a period of 6 months, I'll introduce that person to you as elders. After a period of 3 weeks, something just came in my brain like a thought, which eventually became a reality. It started as a thought.
What was that?
A thought came, how do you think about that lady Irene? My heart said no, it couldn't be. But the thought continued to speak and speak and speak in my heart. And then, I don't know how it happened. I just picked a call and called Irene. I told her, I want to meet you. In fact, I told her, Irene, I want to take you for a fish at the beach.
Okay.
So they came and we went to the beach.
Sure.
We had our fish. We enjoyed after eating our fish. We are sitting in the gardens. I told her, I'm requesting your hand in marriage.
So you hadn't talked to her about this
No.
ever before? There was no romance, no dating?
No.
This is just a person you knew?
Yeah.
And that's okay. And how did she take that?
She said, 1, 2, what, She couldn't believe it because somehow I was highly respected. That is 1. 2, at that particular time, God had raised me to a certain level. She never thought that a man of my caliber can come down and say, I want her hand in marriage. We talked and said, anyway, she said, and then I will pray for it. I pray about it. And I told her, I am a mature man. I'm not a boy. Of course, you have a witness in your heart that I'm the right person or I'm not. So these things of saying I'm going to pray about it and I'll let you know, I don't want to hear them. Just tell me I've accepted or I've not.
Wow. That's amazing.
Then she looked at my face and I looked at her face seriously. After talking for like 1-2 hours, she said, okay, I have accepted.
Wow. That is incredible.
It's amazing.
That is incredible.
It's amazing. And then when she said that was April. That one happened in April.
Okay.
I told her, well, you have accepted. In a 3 weeks' time, I want to meet your former pastor who used to pastor you. And after that, I want to meet your brothers and your sisters. And then I want you to meet my church administrator. And then in my church, I had got a certain lady, very mature. And that lady loved me so much. So that lady calls me her dad. She's 50 years, but she calls me her dad.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how other people in my church calls me. They call me dad.
Wow.
And there is a name they use, Muzei. They call me Muzei. Muzei simply means old person. So they call me Muzei, means old and respected person. That's how they call me up to now.
As someone who did not grow up with Musée,
Yes.
with Musée in your
Yes.
life,
Yes. Yes.
what's that like to have somebody call you that?
My grandmother, before she died, she taught me 3 things
Yeah.
which are making a difference up to today in my life. This is what I live for. She's the greatest woman I ever seen on the face of the earth. I don't know whether I will see any other one.
My wife's in the house. You'll see her in a minute.
I don't think.
She's pretty great.
She's not great. She's great to you, but
She
to
is.
my life,
Yes.
my grandmother, who brought me up when I was a baby,
Yeah.
she was a great lady.
What did she tell you? You said 3 things.
Number 1, she taught me how to fear God. She was a Catholic, and she used to take me to church every Sunday. And she taught me to fear God and to love Him with all my heart. Number 2, she taught me to be a hard-working person. Fearing God and loving God has made a difference in my life. Then hard-working makes me to be accepted everywhere I go. My pastor who preached to me the gospel loved me because I was a hard-working guy and I feared God so much. I don't wait for somebody to send me to do something. When I see there is a need, I just go direct and do it. Up to now, that is my character.
Yeah.
It was taught to me by my grandmother. Then the third thing, it is ethics and integrity. The way you behave determines whether the people respect you or not. The way you behave determines whether the people will associate with you or not. So when people looked at me, the way I fear God, the way I'm hardworking, and the way I behave, then they developed that word, Muzei, which means odd person, respected. So at the beach,
Yes. So back to the beach.
that lady, I told her, I have a lady whom I call that old woman my sister, my friend, my mother.
Yeah.
I respect her. And she calls me her dad. So I told that girl, Irene, I will introduce you to 2 people. One is my church administrator. The second one, she's Madame Agatha, that lady that calls me a father. Because I had no brothers, I had no sisters, I had no uncle, I had nobody. So those were the people.
Yeah.
But I told her, you have to introduce me in 3 weeks' time to your brothers and your sisters and your pastor who pastored you before you came to our church. So it happened.
Yeah.
In 3 weeks' time, she brought the pastor who pastored her in the village. And I met with the pastor. We talked. I told him, I want to marry your daughter. He said, that's wonderful. We talked. And during that talk, I wanted to ease myself. So I went to the restroom. And then the pastor told Irene, which is my wife,
Yeah.
that is the right man. That's the right man.
Nice.
The second week, the brothers and the sisters of Irene came.
Yeah.
We met, we talked.
Yeah.
Wow, they accepted. And then I told my church administrator, I'm going to show you my wife to be.
Mm-hmm.
She was very excited, but she didn't know who is that person. And before we met, I gave my church administrator a phone to talk to Irene. But I never told her that she's a lady in the worship team. So she was talking to somebody whom she doesn't know.
Yeah.
That day reached, I took her. Oh, surprisingly, she met Irene and she was...
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In African culture,
Mm-hmm.
ladies, they kneel down to the people they respect.
Mm.
It's not in American culture.
Mm-mm.
And we don't force ladies to do that. They do it out of love and
Right.
respect. Maybe some Americans will misquote us when they see ladies kneeling down and what they say, we mistreat them, It's not that. They do it out of love. So, when the administrator saw Irene, remember, my church administrator, she's 50 years old.
Right.
2, she's a senior police officer. Irene, she's 26 years. We met when they met. My church administrator moved from the seat and she kneeled down to greet Irene.
Oh, wow.
Why? Because Irene chose to be her mother.
Wow.
When they call me their father, then Irene, she's their mother. You can have a picture of a 50-year-old woman kneeling down
Yeah.
to a girl of 26 years.
Wow.
But because of the respect she had over me.
Did Irene know exactly what she was getting into, becoming a pastor's wife? Did she know what that would mean?
Exactly, because she grew up in the church.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I would imagine her story is pretty different from yours.
Yeah, it is. It is, because for her, she grew up with her parents,
Yeah.
but always go to church with her. Yeah.
That's great.
So I introduced her to my church administrator. I introduced her to the lady that who I call my sister and what.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them, never tell anybody about it. They kept it as a secret.
Why?
Because it will bring commotion.
Mm.
As a pastor, we are leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, everyone will wish to get married to such a person who fear God, hardworking, and have good ethics.
Yeah.
So everyone would wish. So it would bring a commotion in the church.
Sure.
And it will divide the church. So I told them, keep it as a secret until the thing matures to the level where it will be taught to the church. They kept it up to the appointed time. Then the bishops of Kampala, the pastors, they came officially in my church one Sunday to introduce me and Irene to our congregation. That is, she's the wife to be. And they did that.
How long was that after? Because you said April was when you went to the beach.
Yes, it happened in November.
Okay.
The last week of November. And then in November, we did the introduction. In America, you don't have these things called dowry,
No.
bride price.
Right.
You don't have that.
No.
But in African culture, we have bride price,
Sure.
which is dowry. And the parents of Irene, they wanted 8 cows.
Wow.
8 cows.
I imagine a cow is not cheap.
It's not. 8 goats,
How? Say that again.
8 cows, 8 goats,
Oh,
and some cash.
wow.
And you must know that's what is called bride price.
Right.
And then you have to take other gifts, sugar, salt, soap, clothes, what a lot. I looked for the stuff, all that stuff. And remember, I don't have, usually it is the father, your father as a boy, to help you because you are young,
Yeah.
you are going for the marriage and you are young, you don't have those stuff. So it is your father to give you the cows, the goats, the cash,
Yeah.
and everything. But on my case, I didn't have a father who was to give me, I didn't have anybody.
Sure.
But my church took care of it.
Oh my goodness.
Our father is getting married, our father is paying the bride price, our father, and then they cleared everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. How big is your church?
Um, our church was a congregation of 250, but 250 people.
Yeah.
But later on, we were nearby the old estate. The government came and removed that old estate, and then the people had to vacate from that place to very far distance, so they could no longer come to the church. So for a moment, our congregation is 100 people, 100, 120. Yeah. But at that time, it was 250 members.
That's still amazing. 250 people is not that big, and for them to come up with that kind of gift for the bride
Commitment.
price, yeah.
Commitment. You can have 3 members in the church, but very committed to the work of God. And you can have thousands of people, which doesn't make any sense and difference to your life. So it's not all about numbers.
Right, right.
It's all about commitment. We got married. Finally, we paid the bride price and all that, and then we got married.
That's awesome.
We are married now.
How long have you been married?
Maybe we are coming to 15, 17 years now.
That's great.
Yeah.
Pastor, what are you afraid of?
Usually what I'm afraid of, especially in these days, is that the next generation. When I look to the days when I grew up, it's completely different to the ways how things are happening now. People are very much interested and introduced to pornography, drugs, and all that. By the time we grow up, politics was for old people, very intellectual, very respected. Today, politics belongs to I can say, mafias, because somebody who is famous, as long as he's famous, he can be a president, and because that's what it means to be democratic, or democracy means majority.
Yeah.
And you'll find that somebody who has got the qualities of leadership is not famous. And you find somebody who doesn't have even qualities of leadership is famous. And because of that, and it is democracy,
Yep.
when he stands and campaign, of course, people vote in him to be the presidency or to be anybody in leadership. So I'm afraid when I look to the world now, the sports people, the comedians, the musicians, they are flocking into politics. And I wonder how the world will look like the next 50 years.
Yeah.
If a nation is led by mafias, people who doesn't have character, bad behaviors and all that, people are spending time in pornography, people are spending time in drugs, I wonder how the world will look like in the next 50 years. So I'm afraid of what will happen by the generations to come.
What do you regret?
Well, it is not my wish, but I regret not don't know how to say it, but I would wish to be born in a family which has got a father and a mother, and aunties, uncles around. But to be alone in this world is very painful. So I regret not having a family of belonging, a place of belonging.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't my cause. It was the cause by my parents.
Right.
And well, it wasn't the cause of my parents. It was designed by God. So I don't know whom to blame.
Well, this one's easy. Who is God?
God is God, because there is no way how I can explain God, but to the people that lives on this planet Earth, when you see the nature, it tells that there is somebody who made it to happen. It never happened by itself. However much people become too much wise, brilliant, and all that, they are limited. But there are things which have been there for years and years and years, and they will be there. So they teach us that there is God. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer that I say God is like this, God is like a human being, it is like that, but God is God.
Yeah.
And I want to give an example. This is very sensitive, but it's the truth.
Okay.
America is a superpower. Everything starts in America and goes to the entire world. And guys, we have to pray for America always. God to protect America, God to defend America, and God to bless America. Because America is a gateway to the nations of the world. Especially we Christians,
Yeah.
we must pray for America. And I urge all the Christian people to pray for America. May the Lord bless America.
That's awesome. Pastor, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
It's a pleasure.
This is fun.
It's a pleasure.
When folks take the time to tell me their story and share it with me and enable me to have this show, I always want to be gracious about that and make sure that I am returning the favor by letting you guys know how you can connect with them or help them out. So I'm going to do that right now. But first, you need a moment of backstory. Pastor Henry was the guest when he was here in America. This is back in August when we recorded this. Pastor Henry was the guest of Trey and Bree Reynolds. If you remember, Bree was our guest back, 10 episodes ago. If you haven't listened to that episode, what are you doing? Pause what you're doing right now. Go listen to Bree's interview. I promise you'll love it. You will laugh really, really, really hard. She's fantastic. Okay, we caught up? Great. So, Pastor Henry was Trey and Bree's guest. They are networked with him in Africa. If you would like to help him raise money to buy those bicycles, all you have to do is go to Trey and Bree's website, theReynoldsTribeExperience.org. Again, that's theReynoldsTribeExperience.org. And there's a give section on there. You can give directly to them through PayPal and leave a note that it is for Pastor Henry's bikes, and they will make sure that the funding gets straight to him. If you like this episode and you want to know what Pastor Henry looks like, the easiest way for you to do that is to connect with us on social media, that being Instagram or Facebook, and both of those, it's /ButEnoughAboutMe podcast. That's the easiest way. Additionally, you can go to the website, www.butenaughabout.me is our website. You can see the portraits I made of Pastor Henry there, as well as all of the other folks that have been on the show. You can listen to past episodes. You can connect with all the various platforms that we publish through, those being iTunes and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. They're all up there, links so that you can connect it with your friend or just send it to a friend, help them listen to the show. Also, there's a way you can send me feedback. Down toward the bottom of the page is the feedback section. Stick a little note in there. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you didn't like. Tell me what I need to do to improve. Please, please, please. I'm totally open to feedback. Also, if you or someone you know has a great story, stick a note down there. Let me know. That comes straight to me, and I would love to connect with you and hear your story. In addition to all those things, you can connect with the folks who help make this show happen. Those being Mr. Jace Hackman, who provided all of our intro and outro music, and Mr. Casey Jones. Their websites, respectively, are jacehackman.com and iamcaseyjones.com. You can also connect them just directly from our website, butenoughAbout.me. If you're an iTunes user, please hop onto iTunes and find the show. We got our first 2-star review, but they didn't leave a note, so I don't know what they didn't like. They just left 2 stars. That's hurtful. If you like the show, please go to iTunes and rate it and review it. Leave some nice words. Talk about what you like about the show, because that helps the iTunes algorithm find the show when people are searching for other things. Additionally, and even better, really, the best way you can help the show is by sharing it with friends and family and other folks who need to hear some stories. Guys, this is going to be a rough year, and people are going to become adversarial. And I think not to be self-aggrandizing, but I really think a show like this helps people to remember that we are all humans and we're all doing the best we can with what we've got. Okay, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you have had a wonderful 2019, and I cannot wait to hear what happens to you in 2020. In the meantime, you have an assignment. In the next 2 weeks, find somebody, buy them a cup of coffee or a glass of whiskey, and ask them to tell you their story. My name is Tyler Andrews, but enough about me.